What up, YouTube? T-Movies here. With Spike Lee's new film, The Five Bloods, out now, since parts of the film also takes place during the Vietnam War, I decided to go ahead and do my top 10 favorite Vietnam War movies. Now, there's some pretty decent Vietnam War films around there. Like, I've done my share of best war movies. I've done World War II films. I've just done regular war movies altogether. I've done Army films. I've not really talked about Vietnam War movies, because there's some pretty solid ones around there. Like, there's some really good classic ones. There's actually a lot of classic ones there. So, with that being said, here's my 10 favorite Vietnam War movies. Alright. Number 10, I'm going to go with Casualties of War. Now, this film stars Michael J. Fox. A couple years after Back to the Future kicked in. You also had Sean Penn was in this. It is also based on a New York article by Daniel Lang. And the film was inspired by a true incident which illustrated aspects of the Vietnam War experience. In this film, you had Mike J. Fox as Erickson, who is this member of the squadron station in the deepest jungles of Southeast Asia, and you got Sean Penn, who portrays Mercer, the squadron surgeon, who also vows to revenge after his best friend is killed, and he ends up ordering his men to invade a village and rescue this young Vietnamese woman played by Thai Do Lee, who is rapidly tired and gagged, and it's what happened to her is horrific. And so Erickson refuses to participate in these in these atrocities. So there ends up being so Erickson ends up attempting to file a report on the tragedy and bring Mercer and the others to justice, and so it ends up turning to like a cat and mouse, and he wants to try to rescue the woman. And this is a really good one. You also had John C. Reilly was in this, but I always keep forgetting what a cool career John C. Reilly had. I always keep forgetting he had started his career in the 80s. But anyway, Casualties of War is it is a bit of a intense watch. Sean Penn and Mike J. Fox, who knew those two could work together pretty well. Of course, they has two iconic team movies from the 80s. You had Sean Penn, who had Fast Times, while Michael J. Fox had Back to the Future. So they had some pretty other iconic films that got released during the 80s. But Casualties of War is really a film that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. Like when you see lists of best war movies, you rarely hear people talk about Casualties of War. But it's a really decent one. The one who plays the girl here was pretty decent. If you guys have not seen Casualties of War yet, go give that one a shot. Alright. Coming in at number 9, I'm going to go with We Were Soldiers. Now, this film was directed by Randall Miller, who also Randall Miller also was the screenwriter of Mel Gibson's Oscar-winning movie Braveheart. We Were Soldiers is a really decent one. Here it's a fact-based tale of men under fire and their common acts of uncommon values. And their loyalty to love, for one another, and during the most savage militaries in U.S. history. And so, on November 14th, 1965, in La Drang Valley of Vietnam, you got in this clearing, small clearing called Landing Zone X-Ray. You got Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore and 400 troopers from the U.S. And 7th Air Cavalry are surrounded by 2,000 enemy soldiers in what would become the first and perhaps worst major battle of the Vietnam War here. And you got some good cast members. You got Mel Gibson despite him being a nut job, Mel Gibson is an awesome actor. You also had Greg Kinnear was terrific in this. Barry Pepper was in this film. You had Sam Elliott, Madeline Stahl. You had Chris Klein was terrific. We Were Soldiers had some really cool war battle moments. Really decent cinematography. I mean, if you guys never really see We Were Soldiers yet, give it a shot. It's really a really good one. It doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, but it's a pretty decent flick. All right, coming in at number 8, I'm gonna go with Across the Universe. Now, this is a film that now Across the Universe is a musical film that tells a story through music by the Beatles, and the film does, of course, partially take place during the Vietnam War, and you got Evan Rachel Wood's character, who is named Lucy, who's actually named after the Beatles song "Lucy in the Sky," and you got another character here named Jude, played by Jim Sturgis, who is of course named after the Beatles' other song "Hey Jude." And here you got Max, played by Joe Anderson, who ends up getting drafted into the Vietnam War. And you got a really cool rendition of the Beatles song "I Want You So Bad." That music moment with "I Want You So Bad" with the soldiers all like doing that cool dance moments. The dancing scene with the with Uncle Sam and all that was actually pretty cool to watch. But the Vietnam War scenes was pretty intense. I mean, but Across the Universe itself, I love this movie. You don't even have to be a fan of the Beatles to really appreciate this film. I mean, of course, the movie does take place during the '60s, yeah, during the Vietnam War, and it has some really cool cast members too. You got the likes of Joe Anderson, who doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. He was terrific here as on the road Max. You also had TV Carpo as Prudus. This does have some really iconic classic Beatles songs. If you guys never really seen Across the Universe right by now, the visuals are stunning. It had some really decent romantic moments here. The Vietnam War scene is pretty intense to watch at times. And come on, you also had Salma Hayek as nurses, who did not like that one. You also had not to mention you had cameos by Bono. Bono literally had a cameo in this. Eddie Izzard had a role in this. If you guys never really seen Across the Universe by now, it's a really awesome one. Definitely go give that one a watch. Coming in at number 7, I'm going to go with Born on the 4th of July. Now, this is, of course, a film, directed by Oliver Stone, who's no stranger to war-based films. And this film actually got nominated for lots of Oscars. It got nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for Oliver Stone. Tom Cruise got a nomination for Best Actor. It's a really magnificent one. Not to mention, you also had William Dafoe was terrific in this too. And in it, the film does take place in the 1960s, and you got Tom Cruise as this New York teenager, Ron Kovac, who ends up enlisting in the Marines and fulfilling what he sees as his patriotic duty. And so, during the second tour in Vietnam, he accidentally kills a fellow soldier during a retreat, and later becomes permanently paralyzed in the battle. And so, he ends up returning home to an uncaring Veterans Administration, and to people on both sides of the political divide on who don't really understand what he went through, and he becomes a impassioned critic of the war. It's it's a terrific one. I mean, Tom Cruise does not really do much Oscar bait movies like this anymore. Remember back in the '80s, he usually did stuff like Rain Man. He was in Born on the 4th of July. He was also in Jerry Maguire. He does not really do these type of Oscar caliber movies anymore. He does do action movies more Mission Impossible, Jack Reacher. But I would love to see Tom Cruise go back to this type of realm down the line. But Tom Cruise was awesome in this. Probably one of his best performances he's ever given. William Dafoe was magnificent in this one too. You also had Keira Cedric was in this one. This movie, was a very intense film to watch, but it's a really decent one. I mean, if you guys had not seen Born on the 4th of July yet, it's a really good one. All right, coming in at number 6, I'm gonna go with Good Morning Vietnam. All right, I cannot do that better as Robert Williams. I mean, yeah, no one can. No one cannot do Robert Williams as well. But oh man, I miss Robert Williams. R.I.P. Robert Williams. But anyway, Good Morning Vietnam is a magnificent one. It's really nice 80s material comedy. Now you got, of course, you got Robert Williams who plays this radio funny man, disc jockey named Adrian Cronauer, who ends up being sent to Vietnam to bring a little comedy back to the lives of soldiers. And he ends up having a relationship with this Vietnamese woman named Trina, who ends up shows him the horror of war firsthand. You also had Bruno Kirby here. Forrest Whitaker was in this film. I mean, Born on the 4th of July, it's a comedy, but it has some really decent dramatic elements in this. Robert Williams, at the height of his career, was terrific. I mean, I believe he actually scored an Oscar nomination for this, if I'm not mistaken. But he got a nomination for a reason. I mean, this is definitely one of his best performances he's done. I mean, sadly, the one that like the subject of the film, Adrian Croner, tragically passed away not so long ago. But Robin Williams played that character really well. Like, he was so funny as a role. Probably one of his best performances he's given. If you guys never really seen Good Morning Vietnam yet, it's a really decent one. All right, number 5, I'm gonna go with Full Metal Jacket. Now, this is Stanley Kubrick's take on the Vietnam War, and it follows this small elect private Davis, played by Matthew Modine, and you got you also got Ollie Ermy as this foul mouth drill sergeant. You got Vincent D'Onofrio as Puggy Private Lawrence, as they end up enduring the rigors of basic training uh, and boy, this uh, Full Metal Jacket is awesome. You know, you've got Lee R. Ermy as the drill sergeant in this, who has such a foul mouth. I mean, he's the reason why he probably would not do no drill training. When all Lee Ermy does like drill, drill anyway.
You gave me an answer even if you didn't know.
Sorry about that. As I was saying, Full Metal Jacket is such a really awesome one. Ollie Army, of course, he is best known for portraying the. Of course, he is. I believe he was a drill sergeant back in the days, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, Lee. Of course, he is best known for voicing the toy soldier in Toy Story. Full Metal Jacket is just straight up an awesome one. It's probably one of Stanley Kubrick's best work. Best performances by Matthew Modine. Vincent D'Onofrio was pretty awesome in this. If you guys never really seen Full Metal Jacket by now, definitely give it a shot. Alright. Number 4, I'm going to go with Forrest Gump. I mean, Forrest Gump, come on, it is one of the best movies of the 90s. You know, you got Tom Hanks, who is terrific in this. Of course, he's... Of course, one of Tom Hanks' best performances as the entire role of Forrest Gump. he of course ends up being drafted into the Vietnam War, and he becomes a national hero here. He ends up meeting lots of presidents. I like the flashback scenes with the like when he's meeting up JFK, Richard Nixon, and of course he ends up having a relationship with Jenny, played by Robin Wright. Yeah, the Jenny character I was never fond of. Robin Wright was great as that character, but I never really cared much for the Jenny character. But anyway, and the war scene is pretty intense. I mean, you've got Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise was awesome. I mean, come on, he played Lieutenant Dan. You've got I always mispronounce his name. The guy who played Bubba, Macaulay Williamson, I think his name is. He was terrific. You've got Sally Field, great. I always adore this film. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of 1994. Tom Hanks won the Oscar for a reason. Of course, the film won Best Picture. I still actually will wouldn't mind if Shawshank Redemption had won that year, but I still didn't mind Forrest Gump winning. It's a terrific one. Great, great great performance all around. The war scene I always found to be very very intense at times, but it's still a great one. If you guys for some reason never seen Forrest Gump, and who still haven't seen Forrest Gump by now, but if you never seen Forrest Gump, it's a really awesome one. And Lieutenant Dan's just one of the coolest characters there is. Alright. Number 3, I'm gonna go with speaking of Oliver Stone, I'm gonna go with Platoon. Now, Platoon is awesome. You got Charlie Sheen who ends up leaving his university studies in to enlist in the combat duty in Vietnam in 1967, and once he ends up staying around in the middle of a battle, he ends up fighting in his unit between Staff Sergeant Barnes, played by Tom Berenger, who believes Narby villagers are harboring Viet Cong soldiers, and you got Johnny Depp as Sergeant Elise, who's pretty terrific in this. This is a really intense war battle film. You also had Forrest Whitaker, Kevin Dillon, John C. McKinley, Tony Todd, the always awesome Keith David. I always adored Keith David. That dude's awesome. Platoon also has that really iconic, Vietnam War pose when he's leaning on his legs and there's rain coming down. That scene's pretty cool. Yeah, Platoon just does not get over. It's pretty cool I got 2 Oliver Stone movies on this list with Platoon and Born on the 4th of July. That's because Oliver Stone's the man when it comes to these historical films. Whether you talk about Platoon, JFK, he's pretty great with these type of stuff. And if you guys ever really see Platoon, it's a 1980s classic right there. Oh, not to mention you got William Dafoe in this. So, yeah, I got 2 William Dafoe movies in this list too, so that's that. Alright, coming in at number 2, I'm going to go with The Deer Hunter. Speaking of R.I.P. To the film's director, Michael Cimino, he was awesome. Anyway, the film does take place in 1968, and you got these lifelong friends, Micah, Nick, and Steven, played by Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and John Savage, who are lifelong friends from a working class Pennsylvania steel town, and they end up and so. Stevens ends up elaborating a wedding and one final group hunting trip, and so it does feel like a war movie partially, and so in Vietnam, the dreams of military honor are quickly shattered by the inhumans of humanities of war, and even those who end up surviving are hunted by the experience the experience and all that, and they end up trying to survive in Vietnam. And you got Christopher Walken's Nick character, who also has a love interest named Linda, played by Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep's just a goddess. And yeah, The Deer Hunter it's a really decent battle survival film. It's a very intense film to watch. I always liked the three leads. Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and John Savage were all three of them were terrific here. The film, Michael Cimino did a pretty decent job at directing this film. The film, Christopher Walken actually won an Oscar for his performance, a well-deserving Oscar win. It's a really decent one. If you guys haven't really seen The Deer Hunter by now, give it a shot. It's a 1970s classic, All right, my number one. Sorry about that. Anywho, as I was saying, my number one favorite Vietnam War movie is, of course, Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now it's a classic. It is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who gave us The Godfather. You got Martin Sheen, who's of course the dad of Charlie Sheen. And here it does take place in Vietnam in 1970s, and you got Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, who takes a perilous and increasingly hallucinatory journey upriver to find and terminate Kono Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando, who is a once promising officer who ends up reportedly going completely mad here. And you got Robert DeVoe plays the air cavalry officer. Dennis Hopper plays this freelancer photographer here. And so Wheeler ends up traveling further and further into the heart of the darkness. You also got Harrison Ford, Lawrence Fishburne, Harvey Keitel was in this. It's definitely one of the most intense war movies there is. And the special edition, they had like a special edition, I think last year or a couple years ago. The special edition's pretty decent too. But yeah, Apocalypse Now is definitely a war movie that does not get old. Francis Ford Coppola, he's the man. Whether you talk about The Godfather, and loads of many other stuff, Francis Ford Coppola just makes some pretty solid work. And Apocalypse Now is definitely one of them. It's a very, like I said, it's a tense one. Great performances by the cast. If you guys haven't really seen Apocalypse Now yet, definitely give it a shot. Alright, that's pretty much it. Let me do the quick rundown. 10 casualties of war, 9 we were soldiers, 8 across the universe, 7 born on the 4th of July, 6 Good Morning Vietnam, 5 Full Metal Jacket, 4 Forrest Gump, 3 Platoon, 2 The Deer Hunter, and number 1 is Apocalypse Now. And there's loads of other good ones I probably could have added. Let's see. The Last Full Measure with Sam Jackson. That was a pretty good one. Let's see. The X-Men Days of Future Past. They time travel to the Vietnam War. In Country. Let's see. JFK. Nixon. The War with Kevin Costner. That's a pretty good one. Let's see. I'm not really going to count Tropic Thunder because that's a film that, about them making a movie about Vietnam War, so I'm not really going to count that. Hamburger Hill's a good one. Rambo 3, I guess I could have had that one. There's a pretty decent Vietnam War movies around there. But let me leave it with you guys. What is your favorite Vietnam War movies? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This is T-Movie signing out.